All right, back on a Monday night with Matthew Charles talking about criminal justice reform. 737+ is our phone number. We'd love to hear from you if you'd like to call in. I want to go back to the kind of op-ed piece, opinion piece that you wrote, explaining, talking about President Trump's First Step Act, which did include that provision that shortened sentences for crack cocaine related offenses like yours and so on. You say it has some great things in it, but you hope now that the Bureau of Prisons actually does what it's supposed to, right? Which is really to help rehabilitate prisoners. You want them to stay in touch with their families.
Yes, because...
And tell me about that.
Okay. The first statement that you made as far as I want the Bureau of Prison to actually implement the First Step Act, that's stated because...
It's a step, right?
Yes, yeah. Because they're actually an entity within themselves. So instead of being able to just put into play what the administration said do, they go through different type of procedures in order for them to do it, just like for elderly being released or for compassionate release. They stalled on that as far as, you know, the language of the bill itself. They was like, well, it's not really directing us in the, you know, direction that we actually need to go, giving us full understanding of what we need to do. But instead of just implementing what has already been passed by a bipartisan Senate and Congress and was overwhelmingly received by society because they all stated that most of the laws or the punishment for those offenses are outdated and criminal justice reform or change needed to be had. So therefore the Bureau of Prisons just need to implement that which has already been passed by Congress and signed by the President.
Right. How long of a process do you think before that takes place?
Well, I'm hopeful because even when, as I bring back up again, the fact when I went to the First Step reunion and the Second Chances Initiative month, the President did state that those things were being implemented.
Let's talk a little bit more about prisoners being able to stay in touch with their families and why you think that's so important, or maybe prisoners being incarcerated geographically,
right,
but closer to families, so families can visit and
Yes, because whenever a person is sentenced, they're already being sentenced for the offense. And oftentimes on a federal level, the federal government is able to send you to different states, as long as there's a federal facility housing that custody level. Whereas the state normally is able to keep you in the state, but to, you know, move you in different places. But say for instance, if a person receives a sentence and there is a custody level for that person based on their offense and where they need to be, then it's very, very important to keep that person as close to their family as they possibly can, because throughout that process of incarceration, you hear less and less from your children, less and less from your spouse, less and less from your community. And it causes a person to despair or to feel that they've actually serving that sentence alone. And the thing that we wanted to see done was on a federal level, they had a thing to where they can transfer you in a 500-mile radius and consider that was sufficient. And it was 500 air-mile radius. So in other words, it was based on what the plane can do, not what you can do in an individual vehicle. Well, the First Step Act changed that. But at the same token, I think when a person is sentenced within that first year, they need to be kept as close to home, because those, to me, that is the most valuable time. Because,
why is that?
Because then you finna go away, you already received your sentence, and your family know that you have to serve this amount of time. So say for instance, someone with siblings or children, during that time period, not only have they been taken away from the household because of their own offense, they did wrong and they need to be held accountable, but they're being taken to a place to where now the visitation to even see their siblings or their children, a lot of times they can't afford it.
It's putting an undue burden on the family members remaining behind, right?
Yes.
Okay. What do you say to those people who say, hey, look, longer sentences, it's a deterrent. Okay. It's a deterrent. We're trying to deter crime and keep our neighborhoods safe.
I would say just, you know, as an example, look back at the war on drugs that started in the late 80s and 90s. Yeah. Okay, the lock 'em up, throw away the key mentality didn't work. What you ended up having was mass incarceration, a lot of people overcrowding in prisons. You still had the violence, and you still had people committing offenses coming into prison. And now you have people that have been changed or rehabilitated that have these excessive long sentences still currently sitting in prison while you're still putting people in for nonviolent offenses.
In the meantime, you have a lot of kids without mom or dad,
That's correct.
right? For a long period, raised without them, which can, you don't have maybe a breadwinner at home now.
Right.
So now you've got a single parent, maybe not even a parent, maybe it's grandparents or other family members stepping in,
Right.
and it just starts to spin, right? The,
Yes,
the
sir.
ripple effect,
Yes, sir.
socioeconomically, I
Right.
mean, we see it in so many areas, right?
Yes, sir.
And would you say that, I think you wrote that maybe as far as the deterrent effect, really it's the first few years in prison is what
Right.
what does it. You spend a few years in
Yes.
prison and
Right.
it's a deterrent.
I would say definitely so.
Yeah.
It doesn't take a lot of years. I wouldn't even say it takes 2 years, but it also depends on that person's offense and when the awakening comes for that person. But I would say most people within the 2-year period realize, man, I was stupid. But now you got the sentence saying you're not able to get out, and there's no recourse through the judicial system to help you get out. And then you got those who may have aged out. What I mean by aged out is you locked up and you've been there for 5 or 10 years, and you know that you have changed, and you want the opportunity to show society that you have changed, but you're still locked into the original sentence that was imposed. So therefore, people change for various reasons. Some people change because they have spouses and they realize, I made a mistake, but this mistake is now with me for the rest of my life. Some they have children or grandchildren, and they're not going to be in their lives, and therefore they want to change for that reason and be back out there to support their children and grandchildren. And then you have those, like I just stated, that have aged out. They just been in for 5 or 10 years, and they're changed, and they're living a different type of
Right.
way of life before they did while they was incarcerated, but they can't get out.
Let's go to line 1. I believe Ginger's on line 1. Hi, Ginger. Welcome.
Yes, I wanted to know what the gentleman thought of abolishing fines and court costs completely because of the impact that these fees, these charges are having on black families and also on poor people. It impacts their ability to move forward financially when they're strapped with all these costs. And like I said, the poor people and black people in particular are the ones basically supporting supporting these charges, are having to pay these charges.
Right. Okay. Let's.
What are his thoughts on this?
Okay.
Sure.
I fully understand that. As a matter of fact, one of the components of criminal justice reform that I actually speak about is not necessarily dismissing those fines or fees. I understand that some of those shouldn't be there due to the fact that they do become a hindrance whenever a person is released, because their probation officer or their parole officer wants them to actually pay whatever fines or child support payments they owe. But my thing has always been to allow those things to be waived momentarily for a 90-day period, a grace period, 90-day period or a 6-month period, so that these people, once they're released and they have these excessive fines that come from paying for the cost of their offense, the charges that they were actually charged by the court, assessed, as well as their parole fees, as well as any fines, as well as any child support payments. Oftentimes, whenever a person is released from prison, they was working at a prison facility to where they was paid anywhere from 12 cents to 30 cents per hour. So they're not being released with any new money. And then to have to get out and take care of themselves, find a place to live, find a place to work, and be able to transport, whether you don't have a vehicle or you take the bus, you still gonna have to pay so that you can get back and forth to work.
Right.
So those things cause a person, once they've been mounted up, to get out and just be another hindrance, and they can never get their footing.
Yeah.
So in other words, the whole time they're just continuously slipping.
Yeah.
So
you're behind. You're behind
exactly.
the whole way. Right.
Exactly. And we know that when it comes to child support, those fees don't stop just because a person gets incarcerated. But what we're asking for, what I'm asking for, is a grace period. And I think the child support should be paid. And I think any willing parent, male or female, want to pay that. But just being released, say for instance, get out of prison today, and now the parole officer is telling you that you need to be current on all your fees and fines, or he's going to violate you. Then that person is looking like, I don't even have an opportunity to get situated back out into society. And all those things come along with restorative justice, just a society working with you so that you can come back and be a productive member of society.
Yeah. All right. Let's go. Let's see. I think we have someone on line 2. Arnett, are you there? Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Arnett.
Yeah, Arnett, go ahead.
Hi. My question is, how do people that are in impoverished areas in the middle city, how do they learn more about the law systems and what can lead them to longer sentences in prisons, and how would they go about knowing what to do and what not to do to stay out of jail and keep them from, I guess, being repeat offenders? Are there any programs in the metropolitan areas where people can kind of go and get to learn kind of the justice system so that they can kind of see the things that are built for them and against them?
Well, that's a good question. Hold on, we'll listen in. I mean, I know there are some nonprofits that offer legal help, but as far as the whole criminal justice system,
Right.
that's tough. Right.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And a lot of this.
I'm sure at 29 you didn't know much about.
Exactly.
Right.
And exactly. A lot of this is just hindsight after you've been in.
Yeah.
Because you go in naive.
You learn quickly.
Exactly. And the problem is oftentimes that society is also naive because they don't realize that certain things that they do can be considered criminal. Now, if he's speaking from that aspect, then we know that the fact that they're criminalizing a lot of things that we don't even think, are offenses, you're walking into like a trap unaware. But ignorance of the law is not an exception, they always say. But at the same token, to just learn, say for instance, from the perspective like the caller may have been stating, how these laws exist, what actually laws are on the book, I couldn't direct him that way, you know what I mean? Because I really don't understand what he's fully stating, as opposed to, okay, let me learn what the laws are so that I won't break the laws. I understand that perspective. But to just say, well, this law exists, and if I do this in breaking this law, then I'm going to receive this enhanced sentence, I'm not aware of that.
Okay. All right. We're almost going to take another break, and when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about some of the recommendations from FAM, the group, including meaningful work opportunities, access to computers, which is an interesting one, which I want to talk to, because I want to get Matthew's take on what it's like on the other side, inside, and really every facility is different. What's available to you,
Sure.
what level facility you're in, what educational opportunities are there, and so on and so forth. So we will take a quick break and talk more with Matthew in our final full segment that's coming up after this.